lead him to the other side. Having sent the crowds away, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray, remaining there alone as night fell. Meanwhile, the boat, already 1,000 yards from shore, was being tossed about in the waves which had been raised by the fierce winds. At about 3 a.m, Jesus came walking toward them on the lake. When the disciples saw Jesus walking on the water, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and in their fear they began to cry out. Jesus hastened to reassure them. "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter spoke up and said, "If it is really you, tell me to come to you across the water." "Come," Jesus said. So Peter got out of the boat and began to walk on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened. He began to sink and cried out, "Save me!" Jesus immediately stretched out his hand and caught Peter. "You have so little faith," Jesus said to him. "Why did you doubt?" Once they had climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Those who were in the boat showed great reverence, declaring to Jesus, "You are indeed God's own."
A summer storm can appear from almost anywhere at any time. I remember a time when I was working on the coast of North Carolina, and my mother and sister had come down for the weekend to visit, and we had taken a walk out on the beach on one end of the island, and it was beautiful. We were already dressed for casual worship, and then as we got close to the point of the island, when you're far away from either side of getting back to land quickly, I noticed a Sunday morning storm brewing. And I said, "Run, Mom, run, Christy." But it didn't work out so well, for the storm came quickly and windy, and as we tried to make our way back to shelter, we were soaked. And with the blowing wind, the sand stuck to us, requiring a quick change before worship. Storms are a part of life. I believe that we all have experienced storms in our lives. Now, I must admit, I don't have sea legs. So I would not be the one walking on water. Even on a cruise on calm waters, I don't have sea legs. Much less a cruise when the waters are churning and you wonder if you'll ever see land again. I'm not Peter, and probably none of us are. For if you have walked on water recently or ever, please come forward and testify. I see no volunteers. But we all have looked for times to shelter ourselves from the storms that are before us. But sometimes we have looked the storm in its face. We have taken the step, and rather than running from it, we have walked right into the storm. For some of us, it might have been when a physician said, "It's cancer." We take that deep gulp inside, and the decision is made. I'm going to walk into the storm, and I am going to do my level best to walk through it. Now, yes, there are doubts along the way in the midst of storms. I believe if we focus too much on the storm itself, it may drive even more doubt into us. But if we look beyond and walk into the stinging, pounding rain or sleet or whatever it may be, we too may be able to walk on water in our own way. Whether it's swimming in the deep churning sea, or if it's realizing that in community that we may be held up and able to walk or roll into what is before us. Now, it's not always rosy going into the storm. And there have been those who have succumbed to it. Not because they were doubters, but life is unpredictable. And like Peter, as Peter begins to sink and drown, Christ reaches out and holds and pulls him up. Sometimes it is Christ holding us, even in our final breaths of life. I want you to hear this. Even in the storm, it doesn't mean Christ isn't with us. For sometimes we get the notion in our own lives that when everything is beautiful and the waves are gentle and the sunset is beautiful, that this is when God is with us. There is the story of the footprints in the sand, which always makes me cringe just a little bit. But it is whether Christ is carrying us or there are those footsteps moving forward, or even if it's just our footsteps, God is still with us. For there are those who would say when our lives are turned upside down and we are in the most pain, that we have probably committed some sin, and the angry God of heaven is instilling in us a bit of fear, hoping we will turn around. Nonsense. It is when life is at its hardest, that is when God walks with us. My friends, it is the courageous thing, not just to shelter from the darkness of night or shelter from the gray clouds above, but to look the storm in its very face and to walk forward knowing that God is with us, and it is God who presents God's precious hand to lift us up, to hold our hand in the journey until we know life and what eternity may be. Amen.